39 Bye-Byes by Martin Kleinman. 39. You should see him. 2. The phone call came when I was stuck in traffic on the Central Park Transverse, the Met's Temple of Dendor off to my right. A nurse from my father's hospital equivocated her way through the call. My dad had been in failing health. "Where are you now?" she finally asked. 33. When I got married at 24, he offered to do our tax returns. After the second year of this, he said, apropos of nothing, "My goal is to continue to make more than the two of you put together." My wife and I found our own accountant. 26. He would never play in the snow with us kids and never wanted to ice skate or try skiing. "Why would I want to be out in the cold?" he'd say. "That's stupid." 21. Every night, when he came home from work, he smelled like cigarettes, newsprint, and scotch. He would go wash up for dinner and then sit down and say, "This is the best part of the day." I thought that all men should smell like cigarettes, newsprint, and scotch. 34. He retired at 65 and opted for his lump sum payout. The company gave him a gold watch. He thought he was rich. He took my mother on a trip to Aruba. I asked him how it was. The beaches, the casinos. "Your mother liked it," he said. "But you know me. I don't like the sun, and I don't gamble." 20. He showed me how to strip and clean the guns he liberated in World War II. He had a German Luger, a .25 automatic, and a Walther .22 single-shot sport rifle with a checkered stock. He told me never point a gun, even a toy, at anyone, and said that if someone in his unit even accidentally pointed a gun at one of them, they would beat the hell out of that guy. He told me that one time a guy was fooling around with his rifle and it discharged, sending a round through another soldier's helmet while it was on his head. 28. Once, at a big upstate softball game between two rival bungalow colonies, my migraine-ridden, bad-back father crushed a windmill pitch and slugged a mammoth grand slam. It towered over the guys in the outfield and finally landed on the roof of a faraway cabin with a thunderous thunk. We little kids danced with sweaty glee, and I screamed, "My daddy won the game!" 7. When the war started and his friends got drafted, he didn't want to get left behind, so he went to his local board and asked if they could move him up on the list. They promptly obliged, and he was soon sent to Mississippi for basic training, where the Southern boys would rub his forehead in search of his Jew horns. The town sheriff wore twin, pearl-handled .45s. We lived in tar paper shacks. It was the asshole of the world, he told the 5-year-old me. 19. "I don't know what to say," he said, his very last words to me. 8. The light turned green, and the yellow cab Camry behind me honked. I gave the cabbie the finger and nudged my car forward. "Are you saying my father is dying?" I asked the nurse on the phone. "You should see him," she repeated. 36. In the morning, before work, he went to the liquor cabinet and slugged from a bottle of scotch before heading to the IRT-4 train and off to work in Midtown Manhattan. When I'd call to check on him, he'd quickly say, "Hold on, let me get your mother." 12. During the winter of 1944 or 45, his unit was pinned down in the Ardennes. They got bombed and strafed every night. This was the Battle of the Bulge. He got frostbite and nearly had to have his right big toe amputated. Trees exploded from the cold. When the sap froze and expanded, it sounded like gunshots. He wrote a postcard to his parents back in the Bronx. "It is hell, hell, hell every night," he said. He had just turned 19. 27. I edged east onto 84th Street. Dendor, dedicated to Osiris, god of the afterlife, receded in my rearview mirror. My failing father was 89. I remembered details of my most recent visit. His hair was long, his fingernails uncut, his once tall and robust body slack. He looked at me that day with deadened eyes. Slowly he began to speak. 1. He was born in 1923 in the kitchen of his apartment on Garden Street, not far from the Bronx Zoo. His parents were born in Ukraine, came over in steerage, and spoke little English. His father, Louis, was a mink cutter in Manhattan's Fur District and learned English by reading the New York Times and Wall Street Journal every day. His mother, Ray, was renowned for her chicken soup and pastry baking. She had a heart condition, and in her later years was usually in bed, where the little kid that was me kissed her hello and goodbye under her plastic oxygen tent. 9. He got clobbered by an MP's baton in a roadhouse brawl, started when he played Jumpin' at the Jubilee by Louis Jordan and his Timpani 5 on the jukebox. It was there that he saw Strange Fruit, a lynched black man hanging from a tree. Dad said the lynching sparked a race riot in his base that was put down, and the still segregated army sent in half-track military vehicles to quell the violence. In later years, he denied that this event even happened. 3. He was by far the youngest of 3 children, a family surprise, and he ran rampant in the streets. 4. When his sneakers wore out, he stuffed the soles with cardboard. 13. In Germany, he saw a Russian soldier interrogate a prisoner. To expedite the flow of information, the Russian pulled out his sidearm and shot the Nazi in the face in a way that unhinged the prisoner's jaw so that it flopped below his neck. Those Russians were tough, he told me over dinner one winter, when I was home with the mumps. That night, the menu was Campbell's tomato soup and a sandwich of grilled American cheese. 29. After years of complaining about work, he somehow got offered a lot more money for a job at a rival company. Our family was ecstatic. The dour, dangerous man of the house might actually become happy. He went back and forth on it for a week, and finally declined the offer. At home, all the air went out of the balloon. He never discussed his reasoning, but my sense was that he just chickened out. I remember being very disappointed. 5. His childhood friends would fling clods of dried horse poop on from the streets into the open door of the Chinese laundry, make obscene gestures, and run away. 11. One time he flushed a group of Nazis out of a henhouse in rural France. He said his hands were shaking as he pointed his carbine at the Germans. 24. He suffered from cruel migraines and popped APC tablets like Skittles until they burned a hole in his stomach and he got an ulcer. He also had a slipped disc and suffered debilitating back pain that seemed always to flare on family vacations. 17. He never spoke much about the war, at least to his relatives and buddies, only to me. When some of his contemporaries would start talking about the rations, or basic training, or what they saw, or what they did, he would leave the room. Empty barrels make the most noise, he would explain. 6. He played a mean first base, being a tall lefty, and he was on the Monroe High School team. 10. His unit went to England, then France, Belgium, and Germany. His job was to fix small arms, that is, weapons under .50 caliber. 14. After the Germans surrendered, he was shipped home. While on leave, he went to Coney Island with his buddy Nicky, and they met a couple of girls on the boardwalk. One of the girls would become my mother. 25. He would jump at loud noises and chase me if me and my sister would accidentally drop something. "God damn it! No sudden outbursts," he would scream, with a fist bang on the wall, or a table, or whatever was handy, for emphasis. We never got punched, but he backhanded us if he could catch us before we dove under the bed for cover. 30. For years after his discharge, he ate and drank and smoked to excess. One Thanksgiving, he had a heart attack. He was in his 40s. 22 years later, he had another heart attack and underwent a quadruple bypass. 15. After VE Day, he was sent to Texas to be retrained for the Pacific. Then Truman dropped the big one. 22. He sat wordlessly in his recliner once the dinner dishes were done and he stayed there until bedtime. 16. He came back to the Bronx after the war and picked up where he left off with the girl from Coney Island. They got married. She was 18. He was just a couple of years older. 31. His company moved to New Jersey, and so he moved there as well. My parents had been in the same dump of a rent-controlled apartment for 24 years, well after arson and murder had swept their careworn quadrant of the Bronx. 32. They took the same furniture they had owned since they were newlyweds to their new home in the suburbs. 18. He went to night school on the GI Bill, studied accounting, and worked his way up the ladder at a big finance company. He hated accounting. He hated his job. He hated his boss. When I was a kid, he reiterated this to me every single day. 35. You never talk, my mother would scream at him. Why can't we ever talk? 23. He would be asleep in his chair in front of the Stromberg Carlson tube TV by 9 o'clock. 37. Once he flushed Nazis out of a henhouse with a carbine. Once he clobbered a towering grand slam that won the game. 38. I don't know what to say.